Hey guys, it's Jake here with etrailer. Today we're going to be going through the process of troubleshooting your onboard air compressor for your airbags. If you have an onboard air compressor, typically they're mounted outside the vehicle so they can get a lot of weather to them, road grime, stuff like that, and you could have an issue. So if your compressor is not working properly, that's what this video is designed to do, is to help you check the proper things in order to diagnose, hopefully, what the issue you're having is. Now what we're going to be troubleshooting today is our compressor is not working at all. If you have like a weak signal or something like that, you may have another issue. But starting from the top, you're going to want to check the fuse first. That's something that people often forget about, or maybe you don't even know that you have a fuse for your system. And this diagnosis is going to kind of be a general diagnosis. We have a Firestone kit on here now, but if you have an airlift kit, you can use the same sort of process to check your kit. So you want to check your fuse first, because after all, that's how our system is getting power. So we're going to check our fuse, which you can usually just open it here. I know that this particular fuse is blown. So you can see here our fuse is blown inside there. What we're going to do is we're going to grab a new fuse and pop it in. If that fixes your problem, that's great. You may have just had a surge in electric or something like that when you started your vehicle. Who knows what the issue is, but we're going to start by replacing this fuse. So we'll take a new 30 amp fuse, put it in place. Yep, we see our compressor tried to turn on and then it popped that fuse. So that means that our problem is further down and most likely down by our compressor. Now we're down by our compressor where it's mounted up to the side of our frame rail. I'm going to just take the ground out and we'll put it back in. It looks like it's still fine, but it could just be a faulty ground. Just back this self-tapper out. Still looks pretty clean. What I'm going to do is I'll grab a little piece of sandpaper or a little Dremel and grind that spot a little bit better and then put it back on. Then we can check, see if our fuse will go back in. If not, we'll keep troubleshooting. So I ground down our spot here on our frame with just use a rotary tool and a little sanding bit, sanded it down a little bit, put our ground back onto our frame. Now I'll run up to the engine bay, I'll lower the vehicle back down, and then try to put a new fuse in and see if that works. If it doesn't work, then we'll have to come back down and try something else. We've got a new fuse. It might be a good idea while you're trying to do this diagnosing period to pick up a pack of fuses that matches up with yours. There we go, popped again, so we'll have to go back down there and try something else. Now we're gonna take our power wire. I'm just going to uncover this. We got it all wrapped up, protecting the connection. We're going to disconnect this from that connection. This wire is coming from our big wiring harness. This is our power wire directly to our compressor. And what I'm going to do is I'm basically going to just hardwire it to see if we can get the compressor to kick on. If it doesn't, then that means that our compressor is shot. Now what we're doing here is we're using our jump box, which is just your standard 12 volt source, and we're going to try to send power to our compressor. I've got our power hooked up and our ground is not hooked up. We're doing this just to see if the compressor is still working. There's a couple different reasons of why the compressor could be locked up. If it is, typically that is why the fuse will blow the way it's blowing, is because some component on the inside of the compressor is stuck and it's not letting it cycle through and start pumping. So, and we've had this happen before with many different brands, but we'll go through some things after we figure out if this is working or not. So I've got my ground. I'm just going to touch it to it real quick. Okay, so it did not kick on immediately. That means that our compressor is locked up. And the reason that could be on there is it could be that where our air filter was installed, it may have gotten water in there and then maybe it drained down here if it doesn't have a loop in the system. So we'll look at where the air filter is mounted, where it's getting the intake from, and see if it's in a compromised spot. And then we'll have to eventually replace this compressor because it's not working. We've traced our line coming from our filter. So you look at it here, you'll go up. We followed along our air lines. You can still see it right here. We followed it up, and then we discovered that between the cab of the truck and the bed of the truck, there's that space. And you can see up there, our air filter is directly in line with that open space, which means it's getting rained on all the time. And there is no loop in in that hose that's leading down to the compressor. So that means that if there's any water getting inside of that, it is draining straight into the compressor housing, which one of two things could have happened. If the compressor wasn't used for a while, it could have rusted the components, making everything inside stick together, or it could have ran with water inside of it, therefore also tearing up the compressor. So this is just something to keep in mind when you're installing these kits. You want to make sure that you put a loop in that line. This one was it was missed on, so our fix here is going to be replacing the compressor. Well guys, now that we found out what our issue is, we know how to fix it, so I'm just going to end up having to throw a new compressor on here, and then hopefully the system works properly. Unfortunately, sometimes when it comes to troubleshooting this kind of stuff, especially if it's been on the vehicle for a while, it's just going to involve replacing a component or another to be able to fix the issue. That was the issue with this one, but hopefully this video was able to help you diagnose what the issue with your onboard air compressor.